Hi there guys, welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. On the home stretch now, just covering the last of the 8 divisions with my free agency reviews. Moving on to the AFC West. Last but certainly not least, I think this was the most competitive division in the league last year. None of these teams were, an easy out, even though the Chargers were impressive in finding ways to lose. Of course, they've now relocated to LA for the upcoming season. However, this episode will be focusing on the Super Bowl champions from the year before this, the Denver Broncos. Of course, last season has to be a disappointment. Of course, not making the playoffs as defending champs. A tough evaluation there. The season went well in a lot of ways. The defence was still very good. Secondary was great. Pass rush still effective. They clearly missed Malik Jackson. They weren't nearly as stout against the run. A couple of teams really, showed that to be an area that they need to address to keep that defence as, the best in the league. The year before it, you could safely say it was. Last year, I couldn't say it was, just because at times they were run on with such ease that if you can't stop the run like they couldn't in some of those games, you're not going to be one of the best defences in the league, no matter how good your secondary is. Offensively, I thought Trevor Siemian played admirably. The offensive line was an absolute train wreck. If anything, it was a real testament to, whilst Peyton was not himself that last year, arm strength diminished. His ability to get rid of the ball quickly and to adjust to a poor offensive line, and also the way teams try and attack him because of him being Peyton Manning. They're not going to throw massive multi-man blitzes at him every down. I mean, Siemian saw a lot more aggression from teams who could see that this was a line that could be exploited. He didn't have the experience, but I think he acquitted himself well. Of course, the Broncos are being mentioned as one of the teams in the Romo sweepstakes. I thought Trevor Siemian looked like a perfectly passable quarterback. Hard to say how good he can be because that offensive line really hindered him. They were very poor. Paxton Lynch didn't look ready to me. He shredded my lot when he played us early in the season. The Buccaneers were terrible in that game. So I don't know how much you can read into that one. When he played later in the season, he struggled. We know they've got a really good 1-2 punch at wide receiver. Sanders and Thomas, both fine players. It's got hard to evaluate the running backs. The offensive line really was that bad. It's quite strange, them and the Seahawks, who'd met in the Super Bowl a few years prior, having similar issues there on the offensive line. The Panthers as well, sabotaging everything they could do on offense. Devontae Booker struggled. I'm not sure how much success you could have expected from him due to the lack of production there. So obviously still a pretty strong roster. John Elway's done a superb job in his time there, mainly through free agency, to be honest. I wouldn't say they've drafted particularly well. I mean, it's always harder, of course, when you're constantly drafting towards the end of each round, but they haven't had, outside of Roby, not a huge amount of production there. But we'll see how things progress there. In terms of needs, as you may guess, O-line, tackles, guards, they need all of it at this point in time. And I think we could see the defensive line needs to be shored up. Beyond that, I think the roster's pretty good at most other spots. Considering the caliber of the defense, not a huge amount of guys available in free agency. It's still a fairly similar group in a lot of ways to the one that won the Super Bowl. The secondary will still be intact. So that's still the strength of that team. Secondary and Von Miller, as long as they're there, this unit should be productive. So in terms of signings they've made, one really nice one, attacks a need well, maybe an overpay. Ronald Leary coming over from the Cowboys on a 4-year, $36 million deal, 24 guaranteed. I like this move. Maybe an overpay. Again, we don't have a huge amount to go on, and of course he was playing on an incredibly talented line in Dallas, and we saw he's a very good run blocker. Did a great job there. It would be easier to evaluate him in pass protection, on a weaker line. I think he fared fine there as well. It is a huge need, maybe an overpay, but he's not too old. Played well, played better than Lyle Collins did, who he stepped in for. Can understand why the Cowboys let him go. They may not have wanted to, but their loss is the Broncos' gain. Got this one done quite early in free agency. It appears they were targeting him compared to like the Zietler contract. It's less. He's not the player that Zietler is, but good move. It's one spot down, just 3 more to go. They signed DeMar Pico from the Bengals, 2-year deal, $7.5 million. I don't like this signing. Pico's been a player I've liked for a number of years because, firstly, you can spot him when you're evaluating. It's really easy with that hair and with the size of the geezer to find him on the field. That helps. And he's been a very productive player for most of his time with the Bengals. Doesn't offer anything in the pass rush department, but a really good run stuffer. But I think last year we really saw age start to catch up with him. Was, if anything, a bit of a liability. I think this contract suggests that he's going to be potentially starting. Don't think that's right for him. He's a run plugger who struggled to stop the run last year. This was an area where the Broncos struggled. I would have liked for them to have got someone who you could look at last year's tape and be like, right, we can plug him in and we know he's going to be a step up. It's a bit much. If it had been a really cheap kind of veteran minimum kind of deal, don't be wrong, they're not breaking the bank. He looked done to me last year, so I don't particularly think too much of this signing. Other than that, not a huge amount. Signed a punter, Ike Barley, as another just a guy really. So yeah, we will see what happens there. Not too active as you might expect. They've got a lot of money invested in a lot of those top players. Players they've lost. Russell Okung, okay left tackle, wasn't his best year last year. Was possibly still the best of a pretty bad bunch, but he's dinged up, unreliable. I can understand why they let him go, especially with the contract offer that he got from the Chargers. And lost Kayvon Webster and Sylvester Williams, who, as I mentioned in my last video for the team he joined, he underperformed. I don't think that's a massive loss for them, although they'll be disappointed, of course, considering the high draft pick that was spent on him. In terms of players that are still out there from this franchise, DeMarcus Ware's retiring. That's a great shame. One of the best pass rushers I've ever seen, particularly in his prime years with the Cowboys. Was still very, very effective for the Broncos. There's no reason to think, outside of maybe if he struggled to come back from the injury, that he wouldn't be able to still contribute to a team at this level. One of the all-time greats. It's a term that gets thrown around too much, surefire Hall of Famer. But this is as easy an induction as the Hall of Fame will ever have. I mean, yeah, just what a player. Just want to give a shout out to him for a great career. I'll probably discuss him a bit more in my weekly review tomorrow, because he really has been that good across his career. Other than that, no major players still out there. As I say, this is a team that's pretty much locked up at a lot of the defensive spots going into next year. Still work to be done. The issues that are there are pretty glaring. The strengths that are there are solid, and you can just look at depth. We'll see what they do on that offensive line. I would expect the first round pick to be used on a lineman, whether it's offensive or defensive side of the ball. Those are clearly the needs. They might be one of the teams that's a bit more active later on, when there's some veteran cuts, that kind of thing, later on in the off season. Again, I don't know if this team should be interested in Romo, or if Romo should have that interest in them, because of course the concern with Romo in particular is the injuries, as well as how well he'll adjust to being on a new team. But the injuries, playing behind that line, I would not trust Romo to stay healthy for 16 games. I wouldn't want to put all the eggs in that basket. Now, whilst they've got, still got Paxton Lynch and Simeon, who, as I say, I feel he played admirably and looked like he could potentially be an average starter. I think there's possibly some upside there to be, a slightly above average player. at least they'd have that backup there. However, I'd probably just continue to try and develop those guys. At this point, I'm not sure the quick fix is a great idea. Even though, defensively the Super Bowl window is open, that is still a Super Bowl caliber defense. Shoring up the run game may just be a matter of adding 1 or 2 players. If they could get, for example, Jonathan Hankins, I'll mention him again. He would be perfect, I think, for this team on the nose. Him and Derek Wolfe would be a solid pair. Find someone else to round out the group, whether it's Pico, who's at least a vet. They could still be very good there. Offensively, skill positions are reasonable. It's hard to evaluate the running backs last season. I liked Booker in college. We'll see what happens there. They could possibly go look to target a vet, though, just to have someone a little bit more reliable going into next season. So what do you guys think? I still think this team's got the potential to be a contender, but it really does hinge on that offensive line. If that doesn't improve, they might still be able to make it. Plus, it's a tough division. The Raiders, much improved last year at last. The Chiefs are going to be a tough team again, you'd have to think. The Chargers have some bits, and at times they can look very good. You got to be able to pass protect it within that division. I think in terms of the amount and quality of high-end pass rushers, this division is the best in the league. I mean, you've got Von Miller, Khalil Mack, a small group like D Ford, Justin Houston, Tambahar Lee, Derek Wolfe gets some good. It's Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, great group of pass rushers. You've got to be able to pass protect if you're playing in the AFC West, and I'm not sure if the Broncos can at this point in time. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think I've been too harsh on this offensive line? Do you think they can contend even with a subpar O-line? How important do you think it is for this team to try and go get another quarterback? Do you believe in the 2 guys they have? Any kinds of questions at all, just let me know below, or on Facebook or on Twitter. I'll do my best to get back to all of them. Any suggested future shows, I'm more than happy to give them a shot. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the Patreon, the Twitter. That'd be great. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for your time, and go Bucks.